Okay, you can be seated. Good afternoon. My name is Darrell Whitley, and it's my honor to serve as the Interim Associate Dean of the College of Natural Sciences. On behalf of the faculty and the staff of the college, I would like to welcome you to our Fall 2022 Commencement Ceremony. Please stand, if you're able, as the Air Force ROTC Wing Walker Honor Guard presents the colors, and join our student musicians from the School of Music, Theater, and Dance in singing our national anthem.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets wriggling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please remain, oops. Please remain standing. We would like to begin our ceremony this afternoon with an acknowledgment of the origins of the land upon which our university was built. Colorado State University acknowledges with respect that the land that we are on today is the traditional and ancestral homelands of the Arapaho, the Cheyenne, and the Ute nations and peoples. This is also a site of trade, gathering, healing for numerous other native tribes. We recognize the indigenous peoples as the original stewards of this land, and as these words of acknowledgement are spoken and heard, the ties nations have to their traditional homelands are renewed and reaffirmed. CSU is founded as a land-grant institution, and we accept that our mission must encompass access to education and inclusion, and significantly, that our founding came at a dire cost to Native nations and peoples whose land this university was built upon. This acknowledgement is the education and inclusion we must practice in recognizing our institutional history, responsibility, and commitment. Okay, please be seated. I now wish to introduce you to the members of the platform party and recognize them for the roles that they play in making CSU a great university. I will ask each person to rise and remain standing throughout the introductions. Please hold your applause until all have been introduced. In the back row are department chairs, university distinguished professors, and university distinguished teaching scholar. Dr. Lori Stargell, Chair of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. Dr. Tanya Dewey, Associate Chair of Biology. Dr. Matthew Shores, Chair of Chemistry. Dr. Craig Partridge, Chair of Computer Science. Dr. Alexander Hupka, Chair of Mathematics. Dr. Jacob Roberts, Chair of Physics. Dr. Don Rojas, Chair of Psychology. Dr. Haonan Wang, Chair of Statistics. Dr. Leroy Poff, University Distinguished Professor in Biology. Dr. Meena Balgopal, University Distinguished Teaching Scholar in Biology. Dr. Deborah Kranz, University Distinguished Professor in Chemistry. And in the front row, Dr. Albert Bimper, Chief of Staff. Dr. Brendan Hanlon, Vice President for University Operations and Chief Financial Officer. Dr. James Bramberg, University Professor Emeritus in Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, and today's commencement speaker. Dr. Simon Tavner, Interim Dean. Dr. Lisa Disleski, Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs. Dr. Santiago de Pietro, Research Associate Dean. Colonel Greg Johnson, Air Force ROCT and Professor of Aerospace Studies. Let us recognize these extraordinary leaders. Please be seated. Our college is committed to providing the highest quality education for our undergraduate and graduate students. The strength of the college and its program is due in part to the commitment and dedication of our faculty. I have the honor of serving with a wonderful group of dedicated scholars, teachers, mentors, and I know firsthand the great satisfaction and pride they feel in the accomplishments of today's graduates. Will our faculty members attending today please rise or raise your hand so that we may recognize and thank you for your talents and dedication. Okay, please be seated. And now I'm pleased to introduce you to Dr. Simon Tavner, the Interim Dean of the College of Natural Sciences.
Thank you, Darrell. It is my great pleasure to welcome our graduates and all who have assembled here to the College of Natural Sciences commencement ceremony. Class of 2022, you have long anticipated this day, some with eagerness, some with anxiety, some with a complicated mixture of emotions. But whatever you are feeling here this afternoon, you deserve to hold a keen sense of pride. Your academic journey may not have been what you or anyone else could have predicted. The past couple of years were extraordinarily challenging, yet you have succeeded. You have demonstrated perseverance, resilience, drive, and focus. You earned the seat you are sitting in this evening, and we are all here to congratulate you and applaud your accomplishments. At this time, I am pleased to introduce our commencement speaker, Dr. James Bamberg. Jim, who recently celebrated his 51st year at CSU, has had a storied career with many notable achievements. After graduating with his PhD in 1969 and completing a postdoctoral research position at Stanford University Medical School, Jim began his career at Colorado State University in 1971 as an assistant professor in the Department of Biochemistry, becoming full professor in 1981. He served 5 years as the interim chair of the department and later 14 years as the director of the program in molecular, cellular, and integrative neurosciences, for each of which he received an Oliver Pennock Distinguished Service Award. Among his many awards and honors, Jim is the proudest of his Guggenheim Fellowship that he was awarded in 1978, the 2 senior international fellowships with the National Institutes of Health, Fogarty Center in 1985 and 1992, the receipt of CSU's two highest research awards, the Scholarship Impact Award in 2006 and the Established Individual Impact Award in 2015, and his recent recognition as a Fellow of the American Society of Cell Biology. Jim is well known for his research that led to the first characterization of the ADF cofilin family of proteins. These proteins play a key role in the cell's cytoskeleton and have been linked to brain dysfunctions, including stroke and dementia, as well as kidney disease and cancer. His work has resulted in publications that have been cited over 20,000 times. This work continues today in Jim's lab. Let us welcome Jim Bamberg.
Thank you very much, Dean Tavener, for those very flattering introductions. First, I want to extend my heartiest congratulations to the graduating students before me. You have not let the pandemic, which forced you into remote classes, interfere with your successful completion of your degree, which demonstrates to everyone that you have the perseverance and resolve to complete a goal, even when circumstances are not ideal. As graduates of this college, we hope that you have learned to question dogma, gather information, problem solve, and create and test new hypotheses, which, as every scientist knows, just leads to more questions. However, graduation is but one step up the staircase of life that you and everyone who has believed in you and supported you will watch you ascend. But what is it that will make you want to keep climbing those stairs? I assume that each of you selected natural sciences as your major college because of your interest in science. And I know that most students selecting majors in our college hope to use their education to do something of significance for others, whether it be on a global, regional, local, or even on an individual basis through personal interactions such as counseling or as a health professional. Some of you may be destined for an advanced degree in the health professions. Some of you may have selected graduate programs, and some of you may want to obtain work experience to help you make a better decision on your future goals. You may even think about scientific research as a possible career, but you may also wonder if you're up to the task. You heard in my introduction that I have what many people would consider to be a remarkably successful academic career. You may think that the success would have been evident in my early education and that I used it to achieve great things. If so, you couldn't be more wrong. I was a very mediocre and lazy student. I had a wonderful chance at a spectacular primary and secondary education through some of the best schools in the United States. I wasn't appreciating the opportunities around me, and I was floating along. In high school, I felt like a very small fish in a pond of sharks. Over 98% of my high school graduating class of 960 students went on to college, most to schools smaller than the 5,600 that were in my high school. However, one interest that I had growing up was science, especially chemistry, due to inheriting my brother's chemistry set. He went on to become an architect. Because of this interest, I had envisioned that I would go to college. Both of my older two siblings graduated from the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana while I was in junior high or high school. It became my top choice because it had one of the top 5 ranked chemistry departments in the United States and was very affordable. Chemistry was one of the few school subjects that I did perform well, and I earned advanced placement in that subject that allowed me to take organic chemistry my first year of college. That was not a wise decision. Especially for someone who did not know how to study. At the end of the first year, I was on academic probation, and my organic chemistry professor, who was also my academic advisor, strongly suggested I change my major, after he generously gave me a D in the course. So how did I get to the point where I stand before you today? My parents, neither of whom had a college education, did believe that I had something within me that I hadn't yet discovered. However, my father was beginning to lose some patience with me and told me if I wasn't willing to work for an education, I might as well work for some of his friends in the construction industry. Since I worked my way through college with summer jobs as a custodian in a middle school, the work as a construction person didn't scare me as much as the lost opportunity to continue with something I had an interest in pursuing. But is an interest in something enough? I had a job delivering mail to professors in the chemistry department and got to know many of them who provided me encouragement. I had also become friends with a couple of hardworking chemistry majors who were getting good grades, and I asked to join their study group in my second year in college. During my sophomore year, this group helped me turn around my grades and showed me for the first time that I actually have a brain that's worth something if I provided information through studying. However, I was still floundering because forcing myself to study for some classes was still work and not fun. I could not yet see what a career in chemistry would be like. At this stage, I was totally uninterested in biology because my high school biology had just been memorization of taxonomy, and I was totally uninterested in classifying organisms. However, hints appeared in my favorite magazine, Scientific American, that a revolution in biology at the molecular level was coming. Then came my epiphany. I took the only biology course I could find that seemed to have excited some of my friends. It was called Microbial Genetics and taught by two professors, Sal Spiegelman and Carl Woese, both of whom achieved membership in the prestigious National Academy of Sciences, and for their pioneering research. Although the structure of DNA had been determined a decade earlier in 1953 by Watson and Crick, mainly based on outstanding X-ray diffraction studies done by Rosalind Franklin, the genetic code was still being deciphered during my undergraduate education, 1961 to 65, a long time ago. Almost every lecture in the genetics course was based on new concepts that were hot off the press. For the first time, I could see the chemistry of life, we now call biochemistry, was calling to me. Finally, my senior year, I got to work in a biochemistry lab. I've never had more fun, more failures, but ultimate success than what I experienced that year. I found my passion, and if you pursue your passion, it will be more than just a job. During the course of my research career, with my first mentor, Ed Conrad, I studied the structure of polysaccharides secreted by bacteria to allow them to live in soil for years during drought. By the seventh revision of my undergraduate thesis, Ed had taught me how to write a scientific paper. For my PhD at the University of Wisconsin, I studied fungal toxins that were killing cattle. The fungi were mostly isolated from ears of feed corn from local farms. But surprisingly, the most toxic isolate was from yellow spots on the 18th green of the Madison, Wisconsin Country Club. This work, for which I earned my PhD, was all organic chemistry, the course I got a D in my freshman year in college. And despite my poor start in this area, I was very successful when I had some idea of why it would be useful. The major toxins I isolated, and for which I, with a lot of help from Noel Riggs, a visiting professor from Australia, determined the structure, are the only mycotoxins on the federal government's list of select agents and toxins. All the items on this list, which include Ebola virus, botulinum neurotoxins, and the Black Plague virus, pose a severe risk to humans, animals, and plants, and thus are highly restricted in distribution. Although I love the research work that went into this project, the continuous exposure to many toxic organic solvents altered my career direction to study proteins rather than small organic molecules. Serendipitously, I attended a seminar by a Stanford professor studying nerve growth factor, a protein, and this molecule intrigued me, although as a chemist, I knew nothing about neurons. The activity of nerve growth factor was discovered by a woman whose passion was research. At age 30, Rita Levi-Montalcini, a Jewish woman living in Turin, Italy, was dismissed from her assistant professor appointment in the anatomy department at the University of Turin in 1938 after the Nazi takeover and Jews were barred from holding academic positions. Not to be deterred from her passion for research, She set up a lab in her bedroom and kitchen while hiding from the Nazis. She used fertilized eggs from chickens on the roof of her building to grow tissues from embryos in a warm oven, and she discovered that explants of spinal cord grew nerves in the direction of co-transplanted muscle, making the initial observation of a diffusible factor she called nerve growth factor. After the war in 1946, she received an appointment at Washington University in St. Louis, as well as a position at the University of Rome, both of where she worked to isolate and characterize nerve growth factor, work for which she was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1986 at the age of 78. While working with nerve growth factor at Stanford University in the lab of Eric Schuder, another of my wonderful mentors, my interest in growing and studying neurons was instilled. I had the good fortune to meet Dr. Levi-Montalcini in 1969 and was inspired by her story. I then learned from Les Wilson, a friend and mentor in the pharmacology department at Stanford, about the drug colchicine, which was known to block chromosomes from separating during mitosis and was used in cancer treatment, but which also bound to a major protein in neurons. This stimulated me to study the colchicine binding protein in the brain. Some of you that have had cell biology now know this protein as tubulin. Tubulin assembles into the long fibers that make up the mitotic spindle, but it also serves as the railroad tracks for transport in axons, carrying material from the cell body to the end of the neuron. Colchicine disassembles these structures, thus explaining at least one of its neurotoxic effects when used in cancer therapy. My mentors taught me how to ask good questions about the molecules of life, but when I first came to CSU in 1971 as the first new assistant professor to be hired in the Department of Biochemistry, I had no idea as to whether I could answer any of them. However, my enthusiasm and passion for research infected many of my early students, both undergraduate and graduates, and I was blessed to have many that were exceptional, and they helped me and subsequent generations of gerbils, the nickname of those given to people in my lab since my initials are JRB, to become successful scientists. If you have a true passion for what you do, you will get up every day looking forward to what the day brings. Not every day will be a success. As a matter of fact, most experiments fail. But in research, you often learn more from failure than from getting the results you were expecting. Research is like cooking. You can follow recipes and get about the same results as everyone else, but you can add a new ingredient and find something totally unexpected, sometimes good and sometimes bad. I recently did this with gumbo, which tasted great until I added the contents of a can of crab meat. My advice to you all is to find your passion and let it take you to a career where your work is your joy. Attend seminars that aren't necessarily in your area, and you'll be surprised at what you can learn that can change the course of your own career. My own career was shaped by 5 sabbatical leaves in world-renowned laboratories, where I was again a little fish in a big pond. Lots of Nobel Prize recipients in places where I went. But it expanded my knowledge in many new areas. Be a good listener and appreciate the knowledge of those around you, and most importantly, you are not limited to one passion. I have been blessed with several professional scientists who have worked with me for more than 15 years each. A very special one, who's here in the audience, is my wife, Lori Minamita, with whom I have worked for 34 years. Without her, my career would probably have ended several years earlier. Her research discovery of a novel pathology in brains of Alzheimer's subjects, but not in age-matched controls, has been the inspiration for many of our current projects. And as long as I don't wake her to talk science before 6:30 in the morning, she's been happy to accompany me along the way. She says it's to follow her lunch, which I make for us every day, but I know her passion for research runs deep in her veins. For those of you who don't think you want another 4 to 5 years in college for your PhD and then several more in postdoctoral training, you should know that Lori has a BA degree in chemistry with no advanced degree. But she has a publication and citation record that in many departments would place her among the top faculty for research accomplishments. You don't need to have a PhD or be a professor to have a passion for research. Congratulations again to the fall 2022 graduates of the College of Natural Sciences. Go forth and find your passion. And go Rams!
Thank you, Jim, for sharing a little bit about your career journey and for your advice to our graduating class. My name is Lisa Disleski, and I serve as the Associate Dean for Undergraduate Programs in the College of Natural Sciences. Today, I am really honored to be able to present our Fall 2022 graduating class to Dean Tavener for conferral, for degree conferral. The academic sector of Colorado State University is composed of 8 colleges and the graduate school. The College of Natural Sciences is composed of 8 departments, and the Bachelor of Science degree is currently awarded in 12 different majors. So, will the candidates for the Bachelor of Science degree from all of our academic departments please rise? Dean Tavener, I present to you these students who have completed all of the requirements established by the various departments, the college, and the university for the Bachelor of Science degree. The Faculty Council has recommended to the Board of Governors of the CSU system that these candidates receive the Bachelor of Science degree in their respective disciplines, and the Board of Governors officially voted to confer these degrees.
It is my sincere honor to formally declare, on behalf of and with the authority of the Board of Governors of the Colorado State University System, I hereby confer the Bachelor of Science degree on each of you, together with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities appertaining thereunto. Let us all recognize the achievements of this wonderful group of students. On behalf of the entire CSU community, congratulations. Please be seated.
Thank you, Dean Tavener. An important tradition in academia is the tassel switch. It symbolizes one's transition from candidate to graduate. Before conferral of your bachelor degree, the tassel is worn on the right side of your mortarboard, and now that your degrees have been officially conferred, I ask you each to move your tassel to the left. Congratulations. In a few minutes, our Fall 2022 graduates will receive their diploma covers. At that time, we will also recognize those students who, through their academic achievements, have received various academic honors and distinctions. A few words are in order to better appreciate the accomplishments of these students. Students earning the cum laude designation have distinguished themselves through outstanding academic performance during their time at CSU. Their GPA is in the top 10 percentile of their graduating class. Cum laude is a Latin expression meaning with praise, but in this context, a more appropriate translation is with distinction. Those students graduating summa cum laude, or with highest distinction, are the students in the top 1% of the class with a GPA of 3.9 or better. Students designated magna cum laude, or with great distinction, make up the next 3% of the class with a GPA above 3.94, and those designated cum laude constitute the next 6% with a GPA above 3.83. Those students are wearing gold gowns or a gold cord over a green honors gown. The University Honors Program offers a challenging and rewarding curriculum for outstanding students, and all honor students must maintain at least a 3.5 cumulative GPA. These students are wearing green gowns and bachelor's hoods, or if in a gold gown, they will be wearing a green cord. Will the summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and honors program graduates please stand or raise your hand so that we may applaud your extraordinary accomplishments. Okay, please be seated. Student achievement is also recognized by initiation into various honor societies, all of which require achieving and maintaining a high GPA. Our graduates are members of many honor societies. I ask those students who belong to an honor society to rise or raise your hand so that we can applaud your accomplishments. So if anyone in an honor society. Please be seated. In addition, we'd like to recognize students completing the teaching licensure program. Historically, CSU graduates more science and mathematics teachers than any other college or university in the state of Colorado. May the students who are licensed as middle and high school science and mathematics teachers please rise or raise your hand so that we may recognize your dedication. Please be seated. The Dean's Office wishes to recognize those students who have enriched their education in the sciences by completing a second major outside the College of Natural Sciences. The Academic Enrichment Award was established to honor these students for the breadth of education they have achieved. Each of these students will be mailed a certificate from the Dean. Would students with a second major outside our college please rise or raise your hand so that we may recognize your achievements? Please be seated. And finally, another group the college would like to recognize is our first generation students. First generation students are students whose parents have not completed a bachelor's degree, so I'm also a first generation student. And these students are a point of pride for us at CSU. Will our first generation graduates and our faculty here in attendance, who themselves are first generation graduates, please stand or raise your hand so that we may applaud your success. Be seated. We would like to acknowledge the members of the U.S. Armed Services who are receiving their degrees today. Will you please stand or raise your hand? Thank you. Since 1870, CSU has served those who have served our nation. And we currently are home to more than 2,000 student veterans, their dependents, and active duty military members. At this time, I would also like to recognize those audience members who have also served or are serving in the military. So those of you in the audience, would current and former members of the U.S. Armed Forces joining us in the audience please stand or raise your hand so that we may applaud your commitment to our nation. Shortly, we will begin the diploma distribution. You, our newest graduates, will be introduced by Professor Jacob Roberts and receive your diploma covers. At that time, you'll have your picture taken. You'll then be congratulated by Dean Tavener and the chair of your major department. I'll read what's here. Major, I think there's been a change, but I will go through. Major Ryan Raleigh and Colonel Greg Johnson will congratulate our ROCT graduates. Faculty from your department will greet you as you proceed off the stage. So you will receive your diplomas here with the dean, and you will be received by faculty here on this side of the stage. You'll also have your picture taken, pick up a gift from the college, and then return to your seat. And now, on to the most important part of today's celebration. At this time, marshals, please escort our fall 2022 graduates to the platform.
So in just a moment, I'll present the fall 2022 graduates of the College of Natural Sciences. But first, let me make a couple of announcements. Guests attending our ceremony are reminded not to block the view of others by standing or by taking photographs at the railing, and to refrain from the use of air horns. Graduates will receive digital images from the professional photographer approximately 3 days after the ceremony. This is your commencement. We invite you to take photographs during the distribution of diplomas, but please do so in an orderly manner. Graduates will proceed across the stage by major, beginning with the Applied Computing Technology major. Honors graduates will lead each department. Graduates, if you're the first person in your major, please hand me your major sign when you reach the microphone. I'll announce each new major and then each graduate's name. And now, it is with great pleasure that I present to you the fall 2022 graduates of the College of Natural Sciences. So the first department is the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, Jacob Levitt. Tegan Rockwood. Johanna Gillespie. Courtney Walker. Brendan Early. Anne-Marie Yvette Martin. Winston Short. Rachel K. Bunyard. Nikki Precious Verdugo. Matthew Wormers. Emily Kirchart. Liam Christopher Elkins. Noel Ridge Featherstone. Clayton Paul Schnur. I'll now recognize graduates with a degree in biology. Zane Wilson. Maria Rose Amendola. Anna Marie Wilwerding. Amanda McPherson. Jenny Huang. Brooke Delorraine Yates. Kira Wenfight Douglas. Shaylee Sky Tureen. Taylor Grace Garza. Lelia Arthur. Jeffrey Thomas Williams. Nika Arcreevy Lynn. Jordan Aradhana Reeser. Emily Jurgens. Logan Nathaniel Abraham. Braden Dennis Mays. Dhruvi Ketan Mehta. Faith Noel Largo. Andrew Michael Carlson. Hunter Williams. Jacob Daniel Alvarez. Sam David Abrams. Madeline Stevens. Tweetrang Clinton. Grace Meiling Ling. Aaron Anderson. Emma Sage Kelly. Alyssa Turner. Grace Catherine Price. Violet Nichols. Madeline Eileen Leisure. Evelyn Rincon. Danielle Hawes. Maggie May Letson. Elizabeth Stanton Dawson. Alyssa Twitty. Brock Michael Linder. Ryan Stack. Jacqueline Cruz. Morgan Grace Allen. Samantha Lee Novak. Abigail Vani Vaith. Emily Caroline Leonard. Megan Claire Howitz. Adeline Yori Parrott. Sarah Catherine Hathaway. Ashley Gerwing. Megan Keeley Stark. Kara Lee Ingalls. Leah Ashley Ortowski. We'll now recognize graduates from the Department of Chemistry. Callan Knabel. Jasper Denton Overbeck. Willa Jean Sauer. Hannah Jane Bruger. We'll now recognize graduates of the degree in Applied Computing Technology. Austin Pappas. Alex Michael Waddle. Jordan Lang Strand. William Seth Connors. We'll now recognize graduates of the degree in Computer Science. Eric Burton Samuel Martin. Zachary Fuchs. Christopher Stephen Dietz. Maya Margareta Vetrano. Michael Young. Tyler Michael Barton. Luke Allen Francis Grove. Joseph Gerbamadin. Daniel Joseph DePaz. Aaron Kilborn. Daniel K. Jenkins. Joao Pimenta. Blake Martin. Wesley Witt Wallace. Lindsay Rebecca Nielsen. Mallory Jane Cahill. Asa Davis. Maxwell Hughes Daly. Connor Benjamin Thompson. Mitchell Martin Deese. William Robert Dackness III. Johnny Murphy. Jack Paschke. Drew Alexander Iyer. Caleb Cluett. Case Daniel Kelly. Rebecca Alban Davis. Tyler Jacob Craig. Tiffany Miao. Lorenzo Daniel Garcia. Tyler David Rothert. Garrett Robert Patton. Benjamin Reed Schrader. Nathan Goldstein. Rachel Sienna Hall. Omir Hossein Racy. Jeremy Thompson. Emily Catherine Tucker. Sean Eric Munoz. Furqan Muhammad Hussein. Forrest Yosefani. Brock Dylan Case. Nicholas Peter Kowalczyk. Amr R. Al Farsi. Awarith Al Rashadi. Aaron David Soriano. Travis Schrader. Nicholas Paul Hinderer. Joshua C. Berlingmeyer. Guirong Liang. Mark Shane Garner. We'll now recognize graduates with degree in data science. Hawas Asad Hawas Kanan al-Sadid. Matthew Kevin Boyd. We'll now recognize graduates with a degree in mathematics. Emily Boltman. Brenner DuPont. Cale Johnson. Heidi Elise DeBoer. Scout Perez. Leah Michelle Ashurst. Christian Opper. Riley Marie Parham. Uriel Calvo Garcia. Taryn Klinitsky. We'll now recognize graduates graduating with a degree in natural science. Joshua Carl Billups. Sarah Rachel Gray. Brooke Lynn Jurenka. Robert Hunter Nelson. Give me a second to get it again. We'll now recognize graduates with a degree in physics. Clayton Powell Pravat. Brendan Michael Arndt. Megan Vildebill. Andrei Sakharov Awota. We'll now recognize graduates with a degree in psychology. Danielle Nicole Wassinger. Roz Gallagher. Fernanda Alacron Avila. Brianna Alexa Hernandez. Stephen Rodriguez. Sydney Allison Meisner. Catherine Ullman. Kaylee Nicole Kidd. Lily Lyons Whiteneck. Carissa Kohana Dykes. Claudia Hahn Roner. Carson Eliason. Abigail Jo Fields. Connor Dale McCauley. Lauren Claire Olson. Mira Allison Urashima. Adrian Melinda Doran Stout. Danielle Alexandra Fitzgerald. Chloe Antonia Ellis. Austin Nelson Chaffin. Benjamin Jordan Johnson. Ryan William Fish. Bianca Santoyo. Michaela Carroll. Asia Reagan Clark. Ethan Smith Rouse. Morgan Michelle Kranig. Valerie Munoz. Destiny Lynn Schreiner Garcia. Alejandro Raul Vasquez. Ryan James Lane. Antonio Pasito. Caroline Rose Ford. Caitlin Cook. Allison Jane Keller. Tiana Wright. Caitlin Marie Lambert. Sophie Marie Kretschmer. Kira Faye Blackwell. Emma Shandine Tucker.
Caitlin Mackenzie Herder.
Caitlin Mackenzie Herrider. Zoe Patton. Joseph Adair. Lauren Nugaborn. Andrew Wilmot. Tess Kelly. Olivia Kristen Berg. Michaela Allen Collins. Haley Ellen Hurtado. Crystal Boyer. We'll now recognize graduates from the Department of Statistics. Mark Andres Heinz. Danny Wong. Levi William Kipp. We'll now recognize graduates with a degree in zoology. Keith Maurman. Macy Patricia Michalek. Emma Rosa Paul. Sarah Jeannie Ramnani. Naomi Shavit Lonstein. Haley Rose Maxwell. Emma Ryan McDonald. Dulcinea Marie Sorrell. Kendall O'Connell Rainwater. Tallis Bay Green. Brent Novice. Dory Rainia Cook. Caitlin Hampton. Emily Schneider. Nicole Glenzinski. Heather Nicole O'Neill. Taylor Ann Anderson. Cassandra Scott. Amanda Christine Thorkelson. Catherine Flora Badway. Teresa Intie Vu Dang.
Hi again. So when I introduced myself to you last time, I told you I served as the Associate Dean in the college. I did not mention at that time that I am also a graduate of Colorado State University. I am sure that you are all excited and proud to have reached this point, and we are all excited and proud for you. I know that some of you might be feeling a little sentimental or maybe a little bit nervous about taking that next big step, moving away from what may have been some of the greatest times of your life so far, time spent at Colorado State University. But it is now that you begin writing your next chapter, tackling your next big adventure, and living your purpose. Each one of you came to CSU from a different place, and each one of you has a different future ahead. But no matter what happens, you all have one very important thing in common with each other and with more than 250,000 others out there who have come before you. You are all alumni of Colorado State University. And it's important to acknowledge that you all do share one experience, earning your degree during a global pandemic. Remember that our most difficult challenges are the ones that expand our potential and unite those who overcame these obstacles together. Be proud of your resilience and carry it with you always. So, while you may be leaving campus, be assured that your university will not leave you. No matter where your personal and professional journey takes you, know that your department and college, your professors and advisors, and the CSU Alumni Association will continue to be here for you every step of the way. I am so happy to be the first to welcome you to the alumni family. Congratulations on a job very well done, and go Rams.
Events like the one we are celebrating today mark the end of one chapter of our lives and the beginning of the next. It is a moment in time to reflect on the past and where we have been, and to ponder the future and where we are going. As I was preparing for today, I was reflecting on my own past, specifically those formative, intense, and optimistic years as a college student. I was raised in New Zealand and moved via England to the United States as an adult. New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa, as three Southern Hemisphere Commonwealth countries, while each is distinct, share historical connections and a common love for rugby and cricket. While none of these three countries are immune from cultural transgressions and the effects that linger today, I was strongly influenced while growing up by the turmoil in South Africa as a reaction to the deep injustices of apartheid. Nelson Mandela, with his leading and charismatic role in staring down the apartheid government, was a formative figure in my life. One of Nelson Mandela's quotes feels particularly powerful both then and at our ceremony today. Nelson said, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." Today we are celebrating the education that our graduating students have worked so hard to achieve. This education will act as the foundation for the rest of your lives, the foundation from which you will change the world. As I look to the future, I see many challenges ahead. However, looking across this room today at our graduates, I feel a strong sense of hope, and more than that, confidence in our ability to meet those challenges and build a brighter and stronger future. As Dean of the college, I have had the opportunity to meet many of our remarkable alumni. I'm always inspired by the stories they tell of how their education at CSU set them on the path for their careers. It is gratifying to see the profound impact that CSU graduates have. I'm looking forward to meeting with each of you in the future to see how you have used your education to change the world. You have accomplished something remarkable, and as is true with all accomplishments in life, you have not gotten to this place on your own. This room is full of people who share in the accomplishments we are celebrating. So I would like a moment to address the family and friends who are here today. Like that of my own parents, your support and guidance of these students has been critical to their success. We are forever grateful for the gifts you have given and the sacrifices you have made for our students, all of which have led them to this moment. Will the parents, partners, families, and friends assembled here please stand or raise your hand so that we may recognize all that you have done for our graduates. Thank you all. Please be seated. For my closing remark today, I would like to introduce one more quote that I hope you will take with you as you leave this ceremony and embark on the next chapter of your lives. This quote is from the remarkable distance runner and current world marathon record holder, Eliud Kipchoge. Eliud says, "No human is limited." Congratulations to our graduating class of 2022.
There's a number of people that we need to thank today for making this ceremony possible. First, I'd like to thank the college staff, our student employees, and our tireless announcer, Dr. Jacob Roberts. I also want to thank our faculty marshals, Dr. Steve Benoit from the Department of Mathematics, Dr. Edward Deloche from the Department of Psychology, Dr. Joseph DeVerde from the Department of Chemistry, Dr. Martin Gelfand from the Department of Physics, and Dr. Carlos Olivo Delgado from the Department of Chemistry. Also, thank you to our soloist, Michaela Fitzpatrick, as well as the talented ensemble and for the music that has added so much to this ceremony. And special thanks to our interpreters, Terry Marsh and Kaylee Mosel, who translated our ceremony into sign language. And once again, thank you to our platform party and the faculty for being here to help celebrate with our students. And now, please look to the screens around the arena for the lyrics. Stand or raise your hand and join us while we sing the Colorado State Alma Mater. Okay. They must not trust my singing because I noticed they turned my mic off during that. I'd like to ask the members of the audience to please remain seated until the platform group, faculty, and students have left the auditorium. Please meet your graduate outside of the building. Photographers will be circulating outside the auditorium to capture additional photographs of our graduates with their family and friends. The Grad Images staff will be wearing red vests, so they'll be highly visible and easy to locate. Find a photographer in a red vest and take some shots of your friends and family. Graduates, please remain seated until the platform party has completely exited the room. Marshals will then direct you to exit the floor at the appropriate time. Thank you. Congratulations, class of 2022. Enjoy the rest of this special weekend with your family and friends.